Alright guys, so today I'm going to go over one more time how to start your black and white photo project. The first thing you want to do is open up Photoshop and open up the photo that you've already saved. Now if you've already saved one and you understand what to do at this point, go ahead and skip the next couple minutes. For those of you who have not found a photo, I want to show you how you would do that. So as I said before, your photo should be something that took place prior to 1960 or so. So let's say you decide you want to do Switzerland in the 1920s. I don't know what I'm going to find here, but let's go to images. And let's change the, under tools, let's change the size to larger than 4 megapixels. Now if you wanted to, you could change the color to black and white, or you could just look for one that's black and white. Now as I said before, the more people that are in your scene, the harder it's probably going to be. Also, like a lot of landscape and terrain, that can also be kind of tricky. So you probably want something that's fairly simple, and you also don't want something with a lot of grain, which means an image like this, if you look at the background, there's just a lot of noise, a lot of little dots. That's pretty tough to do, and it's not going to turn out as well. And I'm not really seeing any here that stand out to me as being fairly simple. This one has a watermark. I don't think I'd want to do that. Let's change Switzerland to something else. I think we'd have a little bit more luck. Let's try, I don't know, let's try Switzerland in the 1930s and see what we see. Okay, so these are definitely a lot more doable. And you know, a lot of people, students just kind of search for like black and white photos or like Marilyn Monroe or Audrey Hepburn, which is fine, but it'd be really cool to see some new stuff. I kind of see the same things year after year. So I would love to see, you know, somebody try something a little bit different. This looks really cool. I think it'd be very hard, but let's do something like this. That's doable. Wait till it finishes loading before you save it, and then you're just going to right click and then save the image. This would be another pretty good one. The background would be really hard, so maybe something a little simpler. This would be cool. Yeah, I can see this working. Once you've saved your photo, again, right click, save image as. As I said before, you do a file open and it's in Photoshop. So for those of you who skipped ahead, let's go ahead and move on to the next few steps. The next thing you want to do is duplicate your background, and you simply drag it to the new layer button. And the reason we do that is because if you duplicate it and you accidentally later on draw on your photo, you have a one underneath it that you can go back to in case you make a mistake. It's also a good idea to lock this layer. The bottom one is already locked, as you can see, and that way you can't accidentally draw on it. Sometimes students, when they're not, paying attention, or things get kind of confusing, you have lots of layers, you'll do that, and then you'll come over and ask me, hey Mr. Ginelli, I've ruined my photo, what do I do? And then I'll have to kind of say, well, you have to go back online and save it again. It just can be a little bit of an issue. So go ahead and move on now. Let's make a new layer, and we'll call this layer skin, assuming you have skin on your photo. Hopefully you have a person. Let's do another one, and we'll call this one, let's say, lips, and then maybe hair. Did Audrey Hepburn have brown hair? Is that Aubrey Hepburn? I think it is. Aubrey Hepburn. It's a good idea to get some reference photos, even if you can't find the person, just to see, another woman, what their skin color is and what they look like. So yeah, she had a little bit of brown hair, so I'll try to incorporate that. So let's go ahead and start with skin. As I said before, skin is going to be, go to red, go up a little bit, and you're going to be in this range. Darker skin, lighter skin. Paint bucket, and you'll see, uh-oh, what happened? I don't have any color. Well, that's because the image mode is still set into grayscale, black and white. So if we go up here into mode, instead of being grayscale, let's change it to CMYK color. And we're choosing CMYK because we are going to prepare this for print. If you wanted to just leave it on web, you could, but I think that CMYK is probably the best for this one. If it asks you to flatten it, say don't flatten. And I don't know what this means, so we're cool. Okay, whatever. So let's try it now. And there it is. That's a good skin color, I think. Now I'm going to create a layer mask, and I'm going to use black on this layer mask to completely hide it. Now I'm going to switch these colors so we have white in front. Getting a paintbrush, I'm now going to switch to my tablet, so give me a second. And I'm going to zoom in, and very carefully, notice my brush is kind of big. That's okay, because I'm using pressure sensitive brush here. If you right click, you'll notice the hardness right now is probably 75%. That's a pretty good place to be for this. I don't want it 100% hard, but a little bit of softness on the edges is not bad. And you can see that I'm just painting directly on this. Oops, that was a little hard. Remember, if you make a mistake, you're using black to get rid of it. Now you're not painting the color of the skin right now. You're not painting pink or peach or whatever. You're just painting white and black, and that is on the layer mask. Make sure you're on the layer mask right now, not on here, but on here. And then using white, you're simply revealing that color underneath. And let's go ahead and see what this would look like now with the layer mode set to color. So this is called the layer mode, and there's all sorts of different ways the layers can interact with the layers below it. We're going to choose color. And you'll notice this seems a little bit bright. Maybe this photo is just a little bit washed out. There's something you can do about that. So if you notice that you're just not getting the amount of color that you'd like, you might want to consider darkening. I'm going to go ahead and do her lips too. You might want to consider darkening this layer up a bit. And if we look at some photos of her, you can see she has a lot of color. Whereas here, not really very much. So what I would recommend doing is, let's go ahead and unlock this layer. And go up here to Image, Adjustments. And let's do Levels. That one's a little easier. And if you see there's like a mountain here, on the right hand side and the left hand side, bring the dots to the start of the mountain, like so. If you had one on the right hand side that was also had a little gap, you could go all the way to this mountain if you wanted to, but I'll stay there. And then take this middle dot and maybe just try darkening it a little bit by going to the right. Sometimes this can give you a little bit more contrast, a little bit more color. If you feel, don't go past the mountain, otherwise that'll occur. And that just might give you a little bit more. Let's look at the before and after. It's not great, but let's go ahead and keep it like that for now. I'm going to lock this again. And let's go ahead and move on to our lips. And we can come back with the skin and maybe try something else a little bit later. On the lips layer, I'm going to go ahead and choose red. I'm going to add my layer mask. I'm going to make it black. I'm going to switch to a white paintbrush. Let's go a little smaller now. And I'm going to change my mode to color. Now let's watch what happens when we attempt to make her lips a little bit redder. Now because this is on top of the other layer, it's going to override the skin color that I put on earlier. That's why I didn't really worry too much about what I did on that layer. And the teeth are getting a little red, so let me just use some black there, and I'll just kind of brush that off a little bit. I don't like the way that looks. Let's see what it looks like from a distance. I'm not crazy about the shape of that. It looks like she's got it kind of smeared on her. But honestly, it's just hard. It's hard from here to really tell where her lips begin and where they end. So I'm going to just leave that for now. Let's do her hair. This is another tough one because her hair is very wispy and it's kind of hard to get it right. Brown, remember, is just dark orange. So let's bucket fill it. Add our layer mask. Make it black. Switch to white. Paintbrush. Change the mode to color. And then let's see if we can get a little bit of color on her hair here. I probably need to go back and finish the skin first, but this color's probably a little too intense, so I can kind of tone it back later, but it's not bad. And I need to come a little bit further with the skin as well, so I can go back to the skin layer and just do a little bit of cleaning up there. And then with the hair, let me use a little bit of black. Maybe soften my brush a little bit at this point. You should be always thinking about your hardness of your brush. You know, just kind of blend that in a little bit together. Not easy. This is actually turning out to be a little bit trickier than I thought. This is kind of a tough photo. I'm not crazy with the way it's turning out, but you know, trial and error. So not bad. The lips are funky, but whatever. So you would continue to do this with everything. You'd keep adding. This is a pretty complex scene, so you'd have a lot of layers. And I said before, you can go back and you can kind of modify things at the end. So let's go ahead and look at how you could do that with, let's say, the skin. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Image Adjustments, Hue Saturation. And I'm on the layer, I'm not on the mask, so make sure you are on the layer, not the mask. And here we get a chance to, let's play with the saturation. Let's increase the saturation of the skin. And let's try decreasing it. And you can see how it changes. So I feel like I was in a pretty good place, maybe a little higher. Lightness and darkness won't really do anything, so I would just leave that one alone. You're not going to get darker because you adjust this slider. It's just not how things work. The hue you could kind of play with. You could say, oh, you know what? She was a little too green or a little too red or whatever. Yeah, maybe something like that. I'm not really happy with the way her skin's turning out, but let's just bump up the saturation a little bit. Hopefully you know what that means now. Just a touch. As far as the hair, maybe we need to decrease the saturation a bit, just to kind of, it didn't seem like it quite had that much color when I looked at the photos. And then maybe her lips, we could play around with different shades if we change the hue. I think I like it a little bit more on that side. And then, you know, if you want to go really bright, you can, or really dark. I'll go bright. And again, changing the lightness is not going to make it lighter. It's just going to make it less intense. So don't mess with the lightness. Okay, it's not bad from a distance. You know, I'd come back in and I'd add the skin here. And man, yeah, that's just a washed out photo. It's just so bright. You're not really getting a lot of color. It looks good in black and white, but this photo is just too washed out for our purposes. And again, I'll show you how you can adjust the brightness of the image, and maybe we can get a little bit more of that in. So if I go to the background copy, let me unlock it. Let's go to Image Adjustments. Let's try, instead of curves levels, let's try curves, and let's pull this one down. Oh, it's going bright. Oh, that's right, I'm in CMYK mode. I don't know. We could even play around with these little dots to maybe just get the contrast a little bit. Ooh, that's not good. A little bit down, maybe. I don't know. Let's see the before and after. Before, after. Okay. So yeah, I think that's coming along. I like this better. Okay. So let me lock it, and then maybe start moving on to other parts of the bike. Whatever. Now, in the end, one cool thing you can do is take your bottom background, the one that I have not touched. So it's okay to make changes to the background copy, but I still have my background here. And you can put it on top, and then you could see the before and after. This is what I had before. This is where I'm at now. And you can see that the changes that you've made and kind of how it's coming along. It's kind of fun to be able to track your progress like that. That's it. There is going to be a couple other steps towards the end, but I think that's going to get you started, and yeah, good luck.